we'll make a start. Welcome to this meeting of Bristol City Council's Public Health and Communities Committee. There is a new sound system, which I'm getting a slight bit of echo where I'm sitting, and we're just working out the tech. Welcome to everyone who's here in the chamber. I think it's too far in January for me to wish all my fellow committee members, officers and members of the public, hope everyone has a happy 2026, and to those who may be listening or watching online as well, because we are being webcast. Before we do some introductions of committee members, just do the normal housekeeping announcements. Unusually, when chairs make this announcement, we are expecting the fire alarm to sound this morning, because it sounds at 10 a.m. Every Friday for a brief test. So it will go off in about 28 minutes time. So we'll have a very brief pause when that happens. If it stays on, or if it comes on at any other time, then it's for real. And if you leave the public gallery, by the way you come in, go through the foyer, out onto the ramp, turn right, and we all assemble roughly in front of the cathedral. Right. First of all, if we do some introductions from the committee members who are here. So I'm Stephen Williams. I'm the Liberal Democrat Councillor for Westbury-on-Trim and Henlees, and I'm the chair of this committee. And if I work around my colleagues.
Hi everyone, I'm Councillor Emily Clark. I'm the Labour Councillor for Bedminster Ward and the Vice Chair of this committee.
Hello everyone, I'm Lisa Durston. I am Labour Councillor for Filwood Ward.
Good morning, Badruddin Henbury, Brenty Councillor.
Cara Levan, Green Councillor for St George Central.
Ellie Freeman, Green Councillor for Bedminster.
Abdul Malik, Green Councillor for Ashley Ward.
Hello, I'm Ed Fraser. I'm Green Party Councillor for Eastville Ward.
Thank you, everyone. We've got, as usual, a selection of senior officers with us, and they'll introduce themselves when it comes to the relevant item on the agenda. And I've got Bronwyn to my left, who is the committee clerk, who will help me with any technicalities and procedure. And we've got Tom and Amy as well from Democratic Services, helping with other practicalities. Right. Apologies for absence and substitutions is the second item. So Councillor Freeman is substituting on this occasion for Councillor Fee Hans, who is a Green Party member of the committee, who is away today. Item 3 on the agenda, do any members have any declarations of interest pertaining to items on the agenda today? No? It's fine. Thank you. That's why we have a committee clerk to my left. Just to remind me that Carol Johnson, who would be the third member of the Labour group, has a family situation and is unable to join us at this point this morning. Fourth item, minutes of the previous meeting. So I propose that they are a good record of our last meeting back on the 21st of November last year. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded, thanks.
Thank you, Emily. So those are proposed and seconded. Can we just indicate that we're happy to accept those as a record? Thank you. Fifth item on the agenda is an opportunity for me, if I want to say anything as the chair. On this occasion, I won't, because I'll be saying some other things as we progress throughout the meeting. Agenda item 6 is the public forum, and that will be followed by item 7, which is a novelty for the committee, a debate on a public petition. So I'll just explain before we go into these how this works. So in the public forum, we split the half an hour time in between questions and statements, and I'll be taking questions first. If you're here and you've submitted a question, you should have been provided with the written answer that has been prepared by officers. and then when I call you, you can ask up to 2 supplementary questions to me. The only rule is they have to be related to the question and answer. You can't introduce a completely different topic that's about the council in general. So you can ask 2 supplementary questions as long as they relate to what you've asked in the first place. And I answer those. If there is something factual or technical that, for whatever reason, I don't know the answer, I will just say that and will write to you, but hopefully I'll be able to answer the questions and possibly, if I need to, have some help from officers as well. So we'll work through the questions first, then we'll come to the statements. Now, we did receive 153 statements for the committee. You can see by what's in front of me that not everyone who submitted a statement wishes to read them out to us. We've had an indication of people who do want to come, and those are the names I will call. If when I get to the end of that, there's anyone in the public gallery who did want to read out their statement, I will ask and just wave at me, and we'll try and fit you in. Then after that, we'll come to the petition debate, and I'll explain how that's going to work when we start that item. Right, if we start with questions, and I've got question 1 is from David Allway, and we don't think David is coming, just checking that's the case. Okay. Right, if we go on to questions 3, 4 and 5, and this is Cian Rance, and Cian, we chatted earlier, so I know you're here. So you've got the answers, and if you'd like to ask me your first supplementary, please.
Yeah, does the council consent to the flags being raised on lampposts, yes or no?
Sorry, I was turning over my piece of paper. Could you just say that again slowly?
Does the council consent to flags being raised on lampposts, yes or no?
It's short. There was a danger with yes or no answers that everything is more complicated than that. But I can say a relatively short answer that no, those flags are not up with our permission or with our consent, our being the council. On this occasion, we do not think lampposts are a place for people to unilaterally decide what they're going to display on them. So that is our starting point, and that's the legal position as well. But there are practical and political considerations arising from where we are, and maybe we'll come to those in future questions and during the debate.
If the flags have been raised without consent, does that mean the raising of the flags is illegal?
That is primarily a matter for the police, and this is where we stray into practical considerations. There are a lot of things that take place in our communities that are outside the general national law or outside, for instance, council bylaws and rules as well. And neither we nor the police can enforce every single transgression of that law or those local rules. And practical considerations always come into this, whether it's for the police or for ourselves, or indeed for the Crown Prosecution Service, where there is the general test is it in the public interest to do something at a particular point in time or at a future time?
Yeah, does that mean it's not in the public interest to stop us being harassed on our streets by racist thugs? It's certainly not in the public interest, and none of us as councillors would want to feel that anyone felt harassed or threatened or intimidated or just feeling uncomfortable in their own home or their own community because of the behaviour of others. But in many cases, these are subjective judgments. You're entitled to put your own judgment on the motivations of some people. We have to listen to a variety of views. Hello? Were the statements, 150 of them, truly taken into account? Because having read them, there are a lot of people who also feel harassed and intimidated. And
your statement, your response to my question just then, kind of brushes that under the rug. Were they truly taken into account? I mean, you can see from the statement, then a number of statements.
Well, the statements have arrived in the last 48 hours for this meeting. The flags started to appear many months ago. And as I'll say, when we come to your own petition shortly, the administration has discussed the situation many times, and our position is an evolving one. Some flags have indeed been taken down, others will be taken down soon. So it's a dynamic situation, and different local authorities around the country are responding in different ways. I don't think it's a political difference. I said at the outset I'm a Liberal Democrat councillor, so you can get some idea of the perspective that I start from as a capital L Liberal. All the authorities around Bristol have Liberal Democrat leaders, and many of those have taken the decision to take down all of the flags, but that's led to practical problems that we've been discussing with them. Got one left, I think.
So we've elected members of the council to represent us, and in Bristol it is, there's a large portion of Greens and a large portion of Labour, and you yourself are a Liberal Democrat, which means most of the parties oppose the flags, and as you just said there, other councils with Lib Dem leaders are taking them down. Why are the people who we've elected democratically not able to do anything against people that we haven't elected? These people are putting flags up without permission, without your consent, in an unlawful manner. It is illegal. Why are they allowed to continue to do that? And why are you not doing anything about it?
Well, our starting point is that people should not be putting flags up on public property, whether it's lampposts or railings or roundabouts, or pillar boxes at all. And in many cases, they are being removed. For instance, where they've been painted onto the ground, they've been removed. Where they're judged to be causing a health and safety problem, they have been removed. And I will say more when we come to your own petition debate, so I don't run out of things to say at that point. But it is an evolving situation, and flags are gradually being taken down. But you referred to the political representation on the council. Of course, we have 4 parties represented on the council. I hope we'll hear from all 4 today. But public representatives have to make judgments on behalf of the public in what we deem to be in the best interests of the public at that moment in time. And I'll say more about this when we come to your petition. And those judgments are difficult, often balanced, and will quite often not please everybody. But on this occasion, one thing I can assure you of is that the subject of community cohesion, of course, we've got a general discussion about that on our agenda later this morning, and on flags in particular, have been the subject of exhaustive conversations inside the council, in between myself as the policy chair with whose remit it falls, but with the leader and deputy leader of the council, with the chief executive, with the police and crime commissioner, with representatives of the police, and we've listened to lots of community voices as well around the city, and we've made an on-balance judgment week by week, but it is an evolving position. Thank you. So the next person who I have on my list of questioners is who I'm expecting to come. Don't have the surname, but there is somebody called Will, and we've also got a question on flags. Is Will here? No, you're at the front. You've also got, you've asked 2 questions, so sorry, 3 questions. So you also can ask up to 6 supplementaries if you wish.
Thank you. As a former highways officer, I'm aware that it's illegal to attach anything to street furniture without permission. That's under the Highways Act and the Country Planning Act, both of which are enforceable by the council and not by the police. I'm also aware that leaving items attached to street furniture encourages those responsible to add further items. That's certainly true of the flags that have been attached to lamp columns throughout Bristol without any public consultation. My question from a legal and operational perspective is, why have these flags been allowed to remain and to multiply?
Again, I'll say, thank you, Will. I'll say more about this when we come to the petition debate itself. But there are political aspects to this. As politicians, we have to judge what is it best to do. But there are practical considerations as well. You said you were a former highways officer, so one of the things we've had to bear in mind is the safety of our current highways officers in these situations, because they would be, or via a contractor, charged with taking down flags. And in other parts of the country, that has, including quite close by, that has led to conflict in between the people who are taking down the flags on the instruction of a politician and people who either put the flags up in the first place or just wish to see them remaining up. So there is that very practical consideration about the safety of our staff or our contractors and whether security or police support has been needed. And that has been our experience from talking to other local authorities. So yes, the starting point is that we do not want people to unilaterally put any symbols, whether they're the Union flag or the St George's flag, up on our public property in Bristol, when it has happened nonetheless, and it is illegal. We have to consider carefully how we respond to that. And you can have, I've been corrected, you're entitled to two supplementaries. So seeing you had quite a few more than I should have allowed you, but Will, you've got another if you wish.
Okay, my supplementary question to that then would be, have you known an occasion in which posters or anything has been attached to street furniture, it's been left to remain and it hasn't multiplied?
Well, I've lived in Bristol a long time. It's a city of protest. And of course, the nature of protest is that some protests you agree with and some you don't. And I can think of lots of places around the city where fly posting and stickering, whether it's on public property or private property, but certainly in the public realm, takes place. Whether it's posters, or whether it's spray paint, or whether it's flags. And I don't like seeing some of it. Some of it I might agree with. So the off-the-cuff answer to your question is yes, I can think of lots of situations where things stay up rather longer than we would like. In the question of the British flag or the English flag, I think there is deeper thinking to be done about how we respond to that, because I think it is different to general political graffiti or fly postering across the city. But just to repeat again, our view as a council is that people should not unilaterally claim lampposts as places where they can attach their symbolism, and in time those flags will come down. Sorry, that's it. You've had Yeah, just to confirm again, on questions, an individual is entitled to up to 2 supplementaries. I allowed Cian to have 6 because he'd submitted 3 questions, but it is 2 per person, not 2 per question, because otherwise we'd never get through the agenda. So thank you, Will. Yeah, but the rules are an individual is entitled to 2 supplementaries, and you've had 2.
Yeah, but I've got 3 questions that I provided to the council in advance.
It's 2 per person.
It is 2 per person. I think.
Right. Every day is a school day, and I'll make sure I get this right in person. Normally, people submit 1 question, they have 2 supplementaries. That's it. You've submitted, and Cian submitted 3 each. So I was generous with the rules to Cian, but it is 2 supplementaries per person, so we just need to be consistent going forward. And there are other questions and other statements, and so we've got 30 minutes for this item. If I find at the end we're still within the 30 minutes, I'll come back to you, okay?
Oh, sorry, they weren't supplementary questions. My other questions, they were the 3.
Yeah, you're supposed to have 3 questions and then 2 supplementary on each question. You don't even know the fucking rules yourself. Sorry.
The way this works is that people submit written questions, written answers are supplied back to them, and then the supplementary questions, the follow-up questions, if you like, are taken orally on the floor. And each individual who has submitted, whether it's 1, 2 or 3 questions, is allowed 2 supplementary questions.
I'm sorry, the word supplementary suggests that's in addition to the questions that I've prepared. Ideally, I'd just like to ask the 2 further questions that I've got. I don't mind missing out on any other supplementary questions.
Right. Okay. The learning point for all of us is that we need to be very clear back to people when they ask questions, that if you turn up in person, you've got 2 opportunities to ask the chair additional supplementary questions in addition to what you've submitted in writing. I thought you were asking me supplementary questions. So do you want to ask something that is different to the 2 you've already asked?
Yeah, they weren't the questions that I've submitted. Sorry, the one further point I'd raised was a supplementary question to the 1 question I had asked. I've still got 2 further questions to ask.
You're allowed a maximum of 2 oral supplementary questions.
Great, yeah, these
you've asked.
I don't have supplementary questions. Sorry, these are just questions. These are just the questions that I submitted, sorry.
Right. Ask another question, Will.
Thank you. Operation Raise the Colours is a far-right initiative founded by individuals such as Andrew Curian, a man with known links to the EDL, who currently works in security for Britain First. I'm anecdotally aware through discussions and WhatsApp groups that the majority of Bristol residents find the presence of these flags both divisive and threatening. What's more, they provide a marketing tool for those who are sympathetic to the far-right narrative, while simultaneously making the city look untidy and unwelcoming. My question from a civic pride perspective is, why have these flags been allowed to remain on street furniture?
Sorry, Chair, just a point of order. The questioner there, and thank you for the question, has read out one of the previously written submitted questions to which written response has already been provided and should be available in the public papers for you to read.
Yeah. I think the difficulty we've got here is, so just to explain again how the process works, anyone can submit by the Monday before this committee a written question. A written answer is then provided. In person, when the meeting takes place, people can ask, as an individual, up to 2 follow-up questions based on what the answers have already been made. There's no need to go through the questions you've already put, because that's already on the record. And you've got an answer to the question you've just read out again. So is there anything you'd like to ask that isn't covered in the written answers you've received that you'd like me to try and respond to?
Thank you. Yeah, that does make sense. Thanks. Okay, my second supplementary question then, I guess, would be, what is the end game with the flags? Are we just going to allow them to stay up indefinitely and to litter the streets and to provide political motivation to the far right?
No, and again, I will say more about this when we get to Kian's petition, but no, it is certainly not the intention of myself or the leader of the council that these flags should remain up indefinitely. That is absolutely not our position, but what we have had to decide over the last few months is the process for taking them down in a safe way and in a way that doesn't inflame political sensibilities. But I'll say more about that when I get to it. Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the next person I've got is Freya Cunningham. Freya, are you here? Right, and just to make sure we're clear again, Freya has submitted a written question to which there is a written answer, so you can ask me a follow-up question to your original question.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for your answer. My question related to the well-researched link between red meat consumption and bowel cancer and heart disease, and what the council can do to help people reduce their red meat consumption. And I appreciate your answer. We read through your the why wait kind of pledge, but it didn't really have a very clear, specific dietary guide, and we haven't been able to find one. And I think having a healthy, balanced diet can be interpreted in very different ways depending on what kind of research people have seen. So I wondered if you were able to advocate for a specific dietary guide, for example, maybe the Eat Lancet one or another.
Thanks for it, and thanks for referring to the Why Wait declaration as well, which we've made as a committee on behalf of the council, and that is an example of the whole city working together, because that declaration we hope is going to be replicated by lots of other public sector bodies in the city and by employers as well. And as a result of making that declaration, we expect all the institutions that sign up to it to advise, train, have discussions with their staff about how they can achieve healthy weight. And obviously a key component of that is the balance of your diet. I don't think it's the role of any public sectors to specifically say, unless it medically is unsafe, not to eat one form of meat or one vegetable over another. I think we have to put the advice in front of people and allow them to make judgments about their own health or the health of their children. Okay, thank you. You can ask another one because you're allowed to if you wish.
Yes, thank you. When you say the advice, you can put the advice in front of people. What? Because it just says sort of eat healthy. What is the advice?
Well, the general advice, I think, is that people should have a balanced diet. Shouldn't overconsume meat generally, but shouldn't overconsume other substances as well. I frequently have completely non-meat days. One of them was yesterday, in fact. So I do that myself, and I would advise everyone else to consider carefully your diet, because it has so many implications both for your cardiovascular system and for your general physical and mental well-being as well. I am personally, just personalise it slightly, acutely aware of what you eat is important. Next week I'll be having one of my regular colonoscopies because of a history of bowel cancer in my own family. So since I was a teenager, I've been aware that you should consider carefully what you eat. But as a politician, as opposed to a private citizen, I think my role is to put as much advice and information and evidence as possible in front of people, and then allow them to make their own judgments. I don't think this is a liberal answer. I don't think it's the role of the state to tell people what they should eat or where they should do their shopping, for that matter. Thank you, and thank you, Freya. And our next question is also on the subject of healthy eating. It's from James Jones. James, are you here?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for your response. I'm aware of all the food initiatives that the Council champions, and I'm grateful that the Council has them in place. In Council literature, residents are advised to eat healthily and sustainably, but no diet guide is referenced as a method to achieve this. I want to know whether the committee thinks that the academically approved Eat Lancet planetary health diet would be a good recommendation to fulfil this target that the Council sets its residents.
Thank you, James. Well, there's a lot of evidence and studies and information about what comprises a healthy diet, and it is something that we would encourage people to look at that evidence, and as I said to Freya, make their own judgments on what they should eat. I don't think it's the role of the council to specifically tell people what they should eat and what they shouldn't eat. These are judgments that people can make for themselves as to what's good for their health, or what is sustainable for their community, or what is sustainable for the planet. And of course, there are a range of views about that.
Okay.
You can ask you can ask another supplementary if you wish. The person who's submitted a question is entitled to a supplementary. What you're not entitled to do is to shout from the gallery. So back to you, James.
A supplementary would just be, I know that the council can't enforce the diets of its residents, but the council can set an example or give a recommendation as to what a healthy diet would be. And I appreciate that you might not be able to give a full answer to this committee's opinion on Eat Lancet's planetary health diet, but would it be possible to get that in writing, a bit more of an opinion of this committee's, a bit more of a fulfilled answer of this committee's opinion on that planetary health diet?
I think what I can undertake, James, is that, as was mentioned to Freya, that the Council has made a healthy weight declaration. The declaration is a starting point. The committee will return to how we're rolling out that declaration, both inside the Council itself and with our partners, following the One City approach right across the city. And that will be an opportunity for all committee members to give their views, and maybe we'll come to some resolution about what advice and guidance we should put out as a public body in Bristol about what comprises a healthy diet. I've got the Director of Public Health, Christina Grade, to my right, and she might want to add something from a professional viewpoint.
Yeah, first of all, thanks both for the questions and the interest in diet and food. I guess from a public policy perspective, both locally and nationally, we would take a broader approach. So as Director of Public Health, I'm most concerned about the inequalities that we have, which are through food inequity. And nationally and locally, high fat, high sugar diets and salt, so high fat, high sugar, high salt, are the things which are the biggest threats to health. I think it's interesting that we're having this debate in the chamber. I think 10 years ago you wouldn't even have had these questions and this level of awareness in the community. So I think, as represented by both yourselves and others, there's a lot of interest in the relationship between diet and health and life. But a balanced perspective is what we want to take, particularly focusing on those issues which are causing the biggest inequalities, early deaths and people living in quite a number of years with life-limiting conditions as a result of lifestyle factors, which are, of course, not just within the domain of the individual, but to do with the conditions that within people live, the affordability of food, the accessibility of food, as well as just a general awareness. Interesting that you've not seen anything in the Why Wait information, particularly about dietary advice, so I'll take that and we can get the team to look at that. It won't be as specific perhaps as the two questions you've asked, but I think we can give, it should be clearer. If it's not, then thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks, Christina. Right, we're in danger of running out of time, but I'll extend it a bit because of the confusion over supplementaries. The final question before we come to statements is from Dan Ackroyd, but I can't see Dan, who's a frequent flyer at these occasions, in the gallery. Right, if we go on to statements then, as I said, we've received 153. We've only received prior notification that 2 people wished to deliver their statements to us in person. And the first one is Kate Jeffrey. Is Kate here? Right, Kate, you can read out your statement if you like, but we've got them all, so you can summarise it, extemporise as you see fit, but just keep it to a minute, please.
Thank you. As a resident of Duckmore Road, BS3, I'm writing a statement to formally request that the council take responsibility for the removal of flags that have been installed on lampposts and other public street infrastructure across the city. These flags have been placed on public property without consent and without any form of consultation or collective discussion with local residents. The installations appear to be carried out by a small group of men who have behaved in a dismissive, rude, and at times intimidating manner when questioned. This has created an environment where residents feel unable to engage safely or openly. Attempts by members of the community to soften, contextualise, or share alternative messages have been met with hostility, including materials being removed or torn down. This reinforces the sense that this activity is not community-led nor representative of the wider neighbourhood. In light of the recent tragic loss of life and the growing public attention linking these flags to CSF, the situation has become increasingly concerning. It is particularly troubling that the installation of these flags has already been associated with a serious accident. Public safety must be a priority. Objectively, this matter concerns the illegal use of public property in a way that is increasingly intimidating and unsafe, and I urge the council to act promptly, to remove the flags and to take appropriate steps to prevent further unauthorised use of public infrastructure.
Thanks very much, Kate. The other person who's indicated in advance that they wish to speak to their statement is Adam Amer. Is Adam here?
So I'd like to formally raise concern regarding the continued presence of St George flags erected in public areas of our neighbourhood and to request their immediate removal. These flags have been in place since September and remain displayed well beyond the period in which they should reasonably have been removed. Their prolonged presence in shared residential spaces has caused ongoing discomfort to residents and has adversely affected the sense of safety and inclusivity within the community. More seriously, there are clear public safety implications. It is deeply concerning that a person recently died while erecting a flag locally. This tragic incident highlights the real risks associated with these displays and raises questions about whether sufficient action has been taken to prevent further harm. Given the length of time the issue has persisted, I'm concerned that enforcement and duty of care responsibilities have not been adequately exercised. I urge the Council to take immediate action to remove the flags from public land and to ensure that appropriate measures are in place to prevent similar incidents in the future.
Thanks, Adam. Right, we're running out of time for statements, but you were the two people who indicated in advance that you wish to speak. Is there anyone else in the gallery who has submitted a statement by the deadline on Wednesday who wishes to speak to it?
I'm raising my hand right now.
Did you submit a statement by 5 o'clock on Wednesday?
I didn't know.
Right. Well, I'm afraid those are the rules that everyone else has followed. They're not new for this committee. They've been the rules in place for a long time, that there is an opportunity for members of the public to make statements to the...
Sorry, as a point of order, a point of order. Other members of the public have taken the time.
Sorry. Can you stop? Effectively, we've all heard what you say, and I did say earlier there are a range of posters, graffiti, flags that are displayed across the city, and look, this. Excuse me.
Point of order's conduct is inappropriate.
Stop. That's enough. This is a public meeting of Bristol City Council where members and the public should all treat each other with respect. There is no need to raise voices. There is no need to swear. That's but believe me, sir. I've been in this game a long time. I've listened to lots of things that I profoundly disagree with, but I always listen with respect to other people's viewpoints. And you've now had your say, which is longer than you would have had if you followed the right process. If you're not going to respectfully observe the rules that everyone else in the gallery has observed and listen to what your elected representatives are about to say, both on the issue of flags and generally on community cohesion later, then I will ask you to leave the gallery. That's entirely up to you. I'm saying if you don't want to listen to other people respectfully, then I would ask you to leave. Sir, the same applies to you. If you want to be in the public gallery with other Bristol residents to listen to a public debate by your public representatives, then of course you're perfectly welcome to do so. What you're not welcome to do is to shout at other people in the public gallery or at us while you're here. If you want to remain and listen to the flags debate that is about to follow, and then the longer discussion about community cohesion in general, then please do so. But don't heckle from the gallery. That's not helpful to anyone. Okay? Thank you. Right. Okay. Let's go on to agenda item 7, which is the petition debate specifically about flags. Let me just explain how this works. When a member of the public, any organisation generates a petition, the rule is if it reaches 1,500 signatories of Bristol residents, then that can trigger a short debate either at full council or the relevant policy committee. So the petition that Cian has triggered has passed that 1,500 threshold. In fact, at the time that we last checked it, it had 1,628 signatures from people with a Bristol address. So it reaches the criteria for discussion at this committee. The way it works is the same as full council. So the petitioner, or in this case, I understand there's going to be two people, Cian and Lynn, going to split the time between them. But you have up to 5 minutes to introduce your petition, 5 minutes in total between the two of you. And then members of the committee will speak. And because we're following the same rules as it would be in full council, we do it in party rotation. So I will take a councillor from the Green Party first, then from the Labour Party. Normally it would then be a Liberal Democrat, but because I'm chairing the meeting, I'm going to go last. So I'll take a Conservative representative third. Okay, and then I will both give my own views as a Liberal Democrat, but also sum up the position because as a committee chair, I'm a member of the administration. Right, so Cian and Lynn, you've told me you're going to split the time between you. I'm not going to cut you off or anything, but please try and keep it between you to about 5 minutes. Okay, so over to you.
Thank you. We, the people of Bristol, call upon Bristol City Council to immediately remove the flags hung from lampposts around the city. Not only is raising the flags on lampposts illegal under Section 132 of the Highways Act 1980 without the council's consent, it's also insidiously racist. It makes people in communities across Bristol feel intimidated, scared, and unwelcome in their own neighbourhoods. I was next to my neighbour when she was pushed to the floor by an angry man when we tried to remove the flags from our street in September. My street now also has stickers on lampposts saying, "Do not remove flags. Remember, lampposts are expensive to replace." I was also threatened outside of my own home when I asked them not to put a flag outside my house. I was told, "There are lots of angry people and we don't want them to see a flag missing outside your house and assume anything." We all have the right to feel safe in our homes and communities. Leaving the flags up makes us all less safe. It tells people that they can intimidate others and get away with it. It tells ethnic minorities that we won't stand up for them. It tells everyone in Bristol that racism is allowed here. I suspect the council will have reservations on the cost of removing the flags, so I want to ask you, what price do you put on our safety? What price do you put on the safety of our diverse community in Bristol? What price do you put on standing up to racism? The flags do not represent Bristol, a city of sanctuary with a proud history of fighting racism and inequality. So we call on you to immediately remove the flags, and I'll pass to Lynn.
One woman who went out in a group of 6 to peacefully take down flags, can you hear me? Yep. Was surrounded by 15 or 20 baying, violent men who snatched her phone and driving licence, filmed the group, threw away their ladder, verbally abused and physically threatened them. People of colour, Muslims and migrants are in even more danger. The Independent this week documents the fear and stress faced by black nurses and care staff visiting flagged areas, the insults they're subjected to in flagged houses. It's no surprise that hate crimes in Bristol are rising since the flags went up. Everyone entering the UK via Bristol Airport sees all the flags along Bedminster Down and West Street and elsewhere. Everyone knows they're part of a surge in far-right activity, that the far-right think they own these streets, and so far they're imposing their will on everyone else. These intimidating displays damage our city. Let's all remind ourselves that when it comes to racism and the far right, to do nothing is to collude. They get bolder, they get stronger. You're discussing community cohesion later on, but with respect, community cohesion is only words in here if the flags stay up out there. Where we live. I'm sorry, but I feel the answers given by unelected officers to some of the questions you've received before this meeting really don't meet the seriousness of this situation. And your elected councillors, please, whatever your party, it is time to act, because just talking and doing nothing isn't an option. The flags need to come down and stay down. Labour councillors have now issued a statement to say so. The MP for one of the city's most heavily flagged areas wants them down. For the Greens, Zach Polanski says, councils should exercise their authority for the proactive, even-handed enforcement to remove flags put up without permission on public property, especially when they may be used to intimidate communities. We're asking you to be proactive and even-handed. The council can and does find funding to use Section 132 to, for example, fine fly posters. Funding for public space protection orders. You can and do fund other legal powers to counter threats to public spaces or public safety. Why are far-right flaggers being treated differently? Are you seriously saying you're caving in to the threat of violence? It's easy to find out who's putting flags up. They announce themselves all over social media. Charging fines for each flag would recover a lot of money. The leader of Bristol's council has stressed the primacy of public safety when it comes to flags. So we ask him, and we ask all of you in this committee, please, to consider the physical and mental injuries suffered by hate crime victims, the harassment and violence faced by those who oppose the flags, the effects of the flags on the mental health of residents living or working in flagged areas, and you can just look at the many heartfelt statements sent in before this meeting, which I can back up from experiences in my own family and community, the atmosphere of intimidation they create. The past tells us that when the far right control the streets and decent people fall silent, it's the beginning of the end for democracy. Making concessions doesn't make the far right go away, it strengthens them. We urge the council to take the flags down.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Cian. Thank you for initiating the petition and the debate, and thank you for your heartfelt comments this morning. So we'll now turn to a series of speeches in rotation on behalf of the four political parties represented on the council, and in order they'll be Green, Labour, Conservative, then me, both hybrid as a Liberal Democrat, but also on behalf of the administration as well. So I'm going to call Councillor Ellie Freeman, the Green Councillor for Bedminster, first.
Thank you. The flags in Bedminster have dominated my ward work since they first went up on the 9th of September. People associate them with Operate Raise the Colours, a campaign about patriotism led by Tommy Robinson, and they feel very strongly that having a flag on their street does not represent their own views. Beyond that, some people feel that the flags represent racism and even fascism. My initial reaction was to push for the flags to be taken down because of the negative impact they were having. Residents have reacted by putting up notices and lovable neighbourhood care bears with messages of welcome, sanctuary and inclusion. Then I started to understand that some people saw the flags as a protest against the government, people who felt left behind and ignored. I know there's a lot of work being done to hear those voices and create spaces to discuss frustrations about issues such as immigration and poverty. There is much more to do on this, as the report we discuss later shows. There are currently flags across 5 wards in South Bristol. If you live or work or go to school south of the river, they're almost impossible to ignore. Flags can mean different things. For some, the St George's Cross represents the best of England. For others, it has connotations of the National Front. I saw the Union Jack as a symbol of unity and peace, but it was also used by the British Empire and has implications of colonialism and repression. Whatever we think, we do use flags to celebrate and mark special events, like the Rugby World Cup or the Jubilee. These flags are not doing that. Along with the flags going up, we have seen a rise in racist and Islamophobic incidents, not just in the form of protests, but also more targeted attacks. This is incredibly concerning. Bristol is a city of sanctuary, and everyone should feel welcome and safe. Most of South Bristol voted for Green or Labour councillors to represent them. We know we don't represent everyone, and that there is a range of views amongst our residents. However, it's now clear that behind the flag operations is a small group of people with strong views. Some have put up threatening stickers, been aggressive towards people who've asked for flags not to be put up, and intimidated Bedminster residents to the point that some don't feel safe being on their own street. These people haven't consulted their neighbours or asked the council for permission. These people do not represent my ward. They've imposed these flags outside homes, schools and businesses. I believe the council is doing a lot of good work. I also believe we need to do more to address the inequalities in the city, as work with local organisations, community volunteer groups and indeed our own community development officers has shown. During the last few months, I haven't just heard from white middle-class women, as you might assume. I've also heard from working-class men, from European and Irish backgrounds, from mixed-race families and from the children of immigrants. They've begged this council to do something about flags, to make their neighbourhood feel like the one that we love again. The petition and statements today show that they're not alone. These flags are not solving poverty or creating jobs or providing education. They're creating division, anxiety and fear. This is not an environment where people can hear each other's voices and work together to address concerns. It's not a community that involves everybody, and it's not the Bristol that I know and love.
Thank you very much, Ellie. So now call Councillor Emily Clark on behalf of the Labour Group.
Thank you. First I want to say thank you very much for bringing this petition. It's clear a lot of people feel very strongly about this. I've read all of the statements and I've received many emails on this as well, including I think from some of you. In terms of the question I think you're asking about whether the flags should come down, the Labour Group, which I'm part of, put out a statement earlier in the week explaining our position. It's quite long, so I won't read it out, but I would encourage you to read it if you're interested. It says simply that the flags aren't allowed to be on lampposts on the public highway without consent. So if that consent hasn't been given, and I think we've heard that it hasn't, they should come down. As you know, there's a Highways Act that says this, and there are health and safety reasons why that's the case. It's absolutely right that the council thinks about the safety of highways employees taking them down. But in addition to this, I think the council needs to think about the safety of residents. And we know that residents have been taking the flags down themselves because they have been left up for so long. Cian highlighted the very real safety impacts this is having on residents. If I can just speak as a Bedminster councillor as well as a member of this committee for a moment, one thing I would add is that people are falling out with their neighbours over this. And we are seeing tensions rising, and clearly that's not where we want to be. So somehow we do need to find a way to try and bring people back together again, and that's my priority.
Right. I'll now call Bader Uddin, who's the Conservative Councillor for Henbury and Brentry, to speak on behalf of the Conservative group.
Yeah, so I can go through, my colleague already said, so endorse, I will support this petition today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bader. So I'll now give, some of this is my own views, but towards the end I'll say where we are as an administration as well. And this is something I've thought about personally for a long period of time, and we all see flags in different ways. They mean different things to different people at different times. So I'm a Welshman who came to Bristol as a student. The flag I am proud of is my national flag of Wales. In my other home city of Cardiff, it is everywhere on lampposts, but it's there because the government or the council have chosen to put it there as a symbol of national pride. The Union flag, I have ambivalent views about. Ellie said it's a symbol of, some people venerate the British Empire. I don't fall into that category. I think all imperialism is wrong, and as a symbol of that, I have ambivalent views about it. My country, my home country, isn't even represented on it, so that's another reason why I'm not entirely fond of the Union flag. The flag I am really fond of is one we can't fly in public places for the last decade, and that's the blue and golden starred flag of the European Union. And I really hope very soon in my lifetime we can fly again with pride in Bristol. As a gay man, the rainbow flag means a lot to me. I wear the rainbow lanyard, as other members do, either to self-promote their background or to act as allies. So symbolism matters, and we know that for some people, the symbolism of the England flag in particular means something that it does not mean to the vast majority of English and British citizens. But that is an issue that we have to grapple with as a society. What do these symbols mean to us? And I don't think we've got to the right place, certainly in England, on that issue. It should not be seen as a dangerous or negative thing to do to fly the flag of your own country. But you always have to look at people's motivations and people's intent when you see their actions. And I do agree with both the petitioners and the statements and questions that come from the gallery that where flags have been put on our lampposts unilaterally, without our permission as a council, the likely motivation of the people doing that is to say, here we are, this is our country, maybe it's not yours. We can't know for sure what their messaging is meant to be, but we can be reasonably sure that it's not there to foster community pride and togetherness. So when these flags appeared, as leaders of the council, both myself and the council leader, had to think very carefully, what should we do? What should our response be? The first thing is a political judgment. We are politicians making those decisions on behalf of the council and on behalf of our city. And we decided, and it was not an easy decision, that it would be, on balance, cause more community tension if we globally took down all of those flags at once, which some other local authorities have done and have come to regret. Our job as city leaders is to try and keep the city calm, to reduce tensions and avoid creating flashpoints, because we can be pretty sure that the motivation of a lot of the people who have put up these flags is exactly that. They want a confrontation, they want a flashpoint, they want to be able to say, we are the victims, you are not listening to us. Even when we put our flags up, your response is to whip them down. So that was a political judgment that we took. We did not want to create those flashpoints. We did not want to give the oxygen of publicity to the people, the plastic patriots, I would say, rather than what they choose to call themselves, who are putting those flags up. Then there's the practicalities. As I was saying to Will in your questions earlier about the safety of our staff, the safety of our contractors, and what would happen if we we put them in the position of implementing a political decision that would actually potentially put them in harm's way. And we have had examples from around the country, from other local authorities, from South Gloucestershire as well. And I've seen YouTube clips on social media of individuals being filmed by these so-called patriots when flags have been taken down, and it can lead to confrontation. So there was that practical consideration as well that we had to bear in mind. But this is an evolving position. So our initial discussions were several months ago, and as an administration, we've refreshed our position and our thinking on numerous occasions. One thing we have certainly decided is that where flags are erected on public property, so whether it's on lampposts, library railings, wherever it happens to be, and they're in sensitive locations, for instance, schools, GP surgeries, places of worship, we will take them down. We are clear about that. Where they're in, generally on the highway, and they're outside somebody's home, and the householder feels that they do not want that on a lamppost outside their home, they can come to us directly, or they can come via their ward councillors. And I know both Emily and Ellie have made representations about this. And if that flag is causing any form of distress to that householder, we will take that particular flag down. Where flags are, because they're often shoddy quality, where, I don't know where they've been sourced from, but where they are fraying, in danger of coming off the lampposts and causing a danger to people on the highway, whether they're cyclists or motorists, we've taken them down as well. And quite a lot have been taken down under that pretext along arterial highways in Bristol, and more will come down over the coming weeks. As these flags deteriorate, we will take them down because we don't want our city to look unsightly. So over a pretty short period of time going forward, I think these flags will gradually disappear from our streets. What we don't want to do is engineer a confrontation with people who then respond by immediately putting them back up again, and we're back to square one. So there is gradually we'll see these flags disappear from our streets. But to come back to where I started, I do think, both as a city and as a country, we do have to discuss rationally amongst ourselves the whole issue of national symbolism. The St George's flag or the Union flag doesn't belong to one particular political subset. It belongs to all of us. And those flags are meant to be symbols of national unity. And we're going to have to think through, as a city and as a council, how we make sure that those flags are repossessed by society in general, and so they can be symbols of unity and identity. And when we come on to the community cohesion discussion later on the agenda, that might be something we touch on. What does it mean to be a Bristolian? What does it mean to be a Welsh Bristolian living in Bristol? What does it mean to be someone who's from a newly arrived community in Bristol? How do you express that identity, and what symbols do you use to do it? So this isn't a simple black and white, yes or no situation. Like most things in public life, there is nuance. And thus far, I think the councillors acted in a nuanced way with the both genuine intention of trying to keep things calm, not trying to stoke tensions, and to move forward in a way that brings the city together rather than divides it. So thank you again, Kieran, for bringing your petition. We may not agree on absolutely everything that we've done, but I hope what you have seen is that we've thought about this deeply, and we will continue to do so. Right. So that brings to an end agenda item 7, which is the petition debate on the issue of flags. What happens next, Cian, is that obviously you've heard what I've said and what other representatives say. I will write to you formally, setting out the position again, and by the time I write to you, there may have been more changes. As I said, this is an evolving position. It's not, we're not taking them down, that's the end of the story. So I will write to you setting out the considerations, and it'll be the position of the Council that I write to you about. One thing I forgot to say earlier, we're operating in a guidance vacuum from central government. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government is not backward about coming forward with umpteen issues of guidance for local authorities. There has been total silence on this issue, which is a national issue right across the country. We've asked government for the view of the Secretary of State for communities, and maybe by the time I write to you, the central government will have made their position clear as to a national issue. When I write to you, because this is of wide public interest, we'll publish that letter as well. Okay. Right. So if we now move on to something completely different, and then we'll come back to community cohesion. If we can go on, colleagues, to agenda item 8, which is the equity fund distribution of monies that are still available to us. You'll remember at our November committee, we distributed a large amount of money to various community projects on that occasion, but as community infrastructure levy is a dynamic process and more funds come forward, we found ourselves in the fortunate position at that point that we still had 63,000 or just over 63,000 still in the pot to distribute. So in front of us today, we've got recommendations which have been informally discussed, I know, already, as to where 63,000 should go, and we'll still have 14,369 left over to carry forward into the pot next year. I don't think we need to take too much time on this item, but before we move to member discussion and vote, can I ask Penny German, who's the Head of Service for Communities, to give a professional introduction to this item?
Okay, thank you very much. So this is to approve the allocation of £63,560.93 on local community infrastructure levy, equity fund for 2025, for 3 proposals that are set out in Appendix A. And that would mean that there's a balance of £14,369 to carry forward to the SIL Equity Fund for 26-27.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Penny. So we've got the recommendations in front of us. We're familiar with the process because we discussed it back in November. We've got a small amount, well, a reasonable amount of money to reallocate. Do members wish to say anything at this point? Councillor Fraser?
Simply to say, seeing as we discussed the individual items on here during our previous meeting, and we've discussed the process extensively in the previous public meeting, that I'd suggest we move straight to what I expect to be an uncontentious vote on this matter.
Before we get ourselves into the situation the Environment Committee got into on this situation, is everyone content that no one wishes to speak? Yeah? Okay. Well, in that case, thank you, Ed, for the suggestion. I will take us to a vote because no one wishes to speak in detail on this item. So I move that the Committee for Public Health and Communities, 1, approves the allocation of £63,560.93 to the 3 proposals recommended in Appendix A, and secondly, agrees to carry forward the remaining £14,369.07 into the 2026-27 equity fund pot. So I move those. Can I have a formal seconded, please? Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we move to a vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Right, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Should we have a 5 or 10 minute break to reset our brains for the wider community cohesion discussion? Right, by that, so it's roughly 20 to 11. Can we come back by 10 to 11? Is that okay? Thank you. Right, it's about just before 11 o'clock. So welcome back to this meeting of the Public Health and Communities Policy Committee of Bristol City Council. We've now come to agenda item 9, which is the main item on the agenda, headed up Reflections on Community Cohesion, which is the title of a report written for us last autumn, in fact, by 2 consultants based on quite a lot of deep listening exercises. As we've just seen from our discussion on flags, this is sort of an emotive area, emotionally charged area, but this is our opportunity to discuss community cohesion in all of its aspects. It's in the remit of this committee, and it's been in the remit of the committee all the way through since May 2024, and work on community cohesion is part of the bread and butter work of the City Council that takes place every week throughout the year. Most of it unseen, unsung, but goes on and is important. But this agenda has now gone much higher up the political agenda than it was just a while ago. Just yesterday, maybe, Bader, you didn't enjoy watching the evening news yesterday, but I did, when Mr. Jenrick said that Britain is broken. I totally disagree with that. There are always problems in politics. There are always new issues. There are always things to be solved. There are always things that pop up and surprise us. But I fundamentally disagree with any local or national politician saying that our country or our city is broken, because that's not a position I recognise. Throughout my lifetime, Britain, England and Bristol has gradually become one of the best places in the world to be alive. This is one of the best times in human history to be alive, whether you're a woman, a person of colour, or a gay person or a transgender person. Our rights, our mutual respect for each other has only moved in a positive direction just over my lifetime and during my political lifetime as well. And there is always a danger when we discuss these issues that we dwell on the problems and the flashpoints and disregard, take for granted, don't feel that we have to mention the positive stories that are happening day after day about people working together, people getting on in their streets, in their communities, doing their bit to help each other, and as a city of sanctuary, which Bristol signed up to about 12 years ago, making people from all over the world welcome in our city. That is a matter of pride for me and for all of us. But, as I say, flashpoints arrive, and one of those flashpoints was in Southport in the summer of 2024, when some girls were murdered by somebody while they were at the Taylor Swift dancing event. And that led to misinformation, falsehoods, false statements being uttered by people in particular on social media, and riots and violent disturbances taking place around the country, including in Bristol. On the back of that, we had to think, how do we respond as a city? Let's take the temperature of where we are as a city. So the service commissioned 2 consultants to write this report, Reflections on Community Cohesion in Bristol. They interviewed people from across the city, and they interviewed some political leaders, including myself as well. And it is a good read. Not much of it in there is surprising, if you know your city and your communities well. Some of it is difficult reading, though, about how people feel disconnected. And that disconnection could be geographical, how people say, I'm from Harcliffe, I don't know people, I don't know, engage with people from Clifton or Westbury-on-Trim for that matter, or people from Easton, don't know people from Fulwood. The disconnection that is difficult for the politicians in the room is the disconnection that a lot of people say they feel in between themselves or their communities and their political and community leaders, and they feel they're not being listened to. And that is a factor in the flags discussion on both sides that we have to think about as well. So that's why we commissioned this report, and one of the recommendations that political leaders should be seen to be doing more listening. So Tony Dyer, the leader of the council, and myself decided that we would do a series of deep listening exercises around the city, starting in December, going forward into early 2026 as well. We've done 3 so far in Lockleys, in Bedminster and Lawrence Weston. We've got another one coming up next week in Hartcliffe. And it's been really empowering to me, and I'm sure to the officers and other people who are present as well, to listen to what people felt able to say to us in a safe space, and what they felt able to say to each other as well, and bringing people together who might not otherwise meet. So the one last week that was in Lawrence Weston had the Westbury on Trim Society from my ward there, meeting Ambition Lawrence Weston on the same table. People who might not otherwise have met before. So that is something tangible we've been doing. And there are other good ideas and recommendations in this report. I've worked in this area both as a constituency member of Parliament and then as the National Minister for Communities for a long time. So I've got experience from around the country as well as Bristol. And I always say to people, this ought not to be rocket science, how we bring people together. And it really isn't rocket science. I still hold by that. But it has become more difficult in recent years. Not just because social media exists, because social media is an opportunity for anybody who wants to go onto the platform and say what they want to say, but the emergence of willful bad actors on social media in this country, but more specifically across the Atlantic as well, has poisoned this agenda to an extent that it wasn't before. What that means is that all of the mainstream political parties, and that I think is all 4 political parties who are represented on this council, have a duty to, where we can, work together to combat constructively the people who do want to divide our communities, who do want to divide even individual streets into other people. I've thought throughout my lifetime we were moving away from that. Some people want to take us backwards into blaming others for their own shortcomings, or just blaming others because that chimes well and gets you votes and gets you perhaps political positions. So a lot of this is quite basic. It has become more difficult, but it has also, that means it's become more important on the political agenda, whether you're a Liberal, a Green, a Labour supporter or a Conservative supporter. We've all got a role to play here. So that's my warm-up for Penny. So we'll ask Penny to give more of the background of what we've been doing as a council, and then we'll have a discussion. We've got plenty of time, and I hope every member of the committee might want to say something. Over to you, Penny.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, as the Chair has said, that the report follows the riots and public disturbance and race hate that we experienced in August 2024. And the report was about wanting to understand, have a deeper understanding of how people were feeling about community cohesion in Bristol, and also to inform a strategic long-term approach. We know that there is so much that is strong about Bristol, so we know that every day hundreds of Bristolians from all walks of life contribute to building strong communities, helping neighbours, organising community events and activities, which many of us freely enjoy. But there's also poverty and inequity, and many of the communities most impacted feel overlooked and marginalised. The work that Cameljet and Ruth did identified 9 key issues, which are described as elephants in the room in the report. And through a series of workshops, these have become 13 powerful messages and 5 priority themes. Voices and spaces, so that's about safe spaces where people can feel heard and understood and be able to say what they think without being shut down. Equity, identity and belonging. Equality of access to opportunity and resources, particularly education, employment, housing and transport. Communication and engagement, the importance of dialogue and information between the civic space and decision makers and communities, and then trust, participation and leadership, and the role of leaders in building trust. So these are the themes that are providing the basis of a city strategy. The messages are not new. They echo national reports and what we know about the pressures that people are under and how they feel about inequity and participation in the life of the city. Much of the report is understandably focused on inequities such as economic status, class, ethnicity and race. But there are also clear gaps in cohesion within communities and different parts of the city. There are other identities and inequities that also shape our experience of community and city life. These are complex, they're multi-dimensional issues which inform both of our experience of inclusion but also exclusion in Bristol. So it sits within a context of increasingly polarised, contested and conflicted spaces. And since commissioning the report, we've seen an increase in community tension, reflecting the national and international context. So what are we doing? So we've set up structures to respond to the immediate challenges and to drive forward the long-term plan. These include a tension monitoring group, which meets every week. That's between the City Council and the police and other teams and services. And also a community cohesion group, which is reflective of communities across the city. And that's the focus of that, as well as helping with the immediate challenges, is about how we drive forward, how we collaborate on a long-term approach. So while we're building our long-term approach, we're working together on, there's lots of work underway in terms of fostering positive relationships and building resilience. So these include community conversations and listening events, lots of community organisations, Ambition Lawrence Weston, Lotley's Neighbourhood Trust, Bristol Disability Equality Forum, East Side and many others are creating spaces for community conversations. And that work is supported by Bridges for Communities, who are really skilled in supporting those conversations. As well as the work that the City Council has been doing, which the Chair's already talked about. It's really important that we involve as many people as possible, that anyone that wants to be involved feels able to be. So we've been reaching out to involve more people. There's a dedicated piece of work with the Youth Council and others to make sure that young people are part of this going forward. We're mapping, understanding what's already going on, because there is so much that's already going on, and that's from there we can understand where the gaps are. Regular communications, there's a regular e-bulletin from the Safer Communities Partnership, and there's also a wider communications plan which will support the long-term work, and that's being developed in the context of the Community Cohesion Working Group, so very much with partners. There's lots of work around creating opportunities and events to bring people together. Following the riots in August 2024, the City Council received some community recovery fund from government, and that supported 37 projects across the city, and that's set out in Appendix A. And there's also lots of work going on from the City Council's community development team, and there's a link to some of the stories of the work they've been doing. Community as a Superpower, BS14, Global Family, Bring Your Culture to the Table in Knoll West, which was part of the Refugee Festival. There's lots of work going on in terms of sharing practice between neighbourhoods and communities, supported by VOSCA, Black Southwest Network, One City, the network of community hubs, and the Community Cohesion Group. There's training and development for people who are managing conflict and supporting people who are impacted, and that's work for the community and voluntary sector being led by Vosca and Sari, and Black Southwest Network have been doing work with black and other racially minoritized leaders to support well-being. The neighbourhood police team, Sari and others, including the City Council, have been proactively sharing information so that everyone knows how to report hate crime and the support that's available. And there's much more besides, and there's some more set out in Appendix A. So in the coming weeks, as well as working internally around what we can do in Bristol City Council to build cohesion, we're continuing the locality conversations that the Chair has referred to, and that's really about sense-checking what's come out of the report, does it resonate with people, and what actions people would like to see happen together. The No Place for Hate meets again next week. The Community Cohesion Group have a development session where this is the shaping of a kind of forward plan, and that's at Bristol Rovers Football Club. So the football clubs are involved in the Community Cohesion Group. And in March, we have our third big One City, Many Communities conversation here in the conference hall, where we will be taking everything that's come out of all these conversations and agreeing our way forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. So that sort of fleshes out what I was saying, that a lot of work is taking place on this agenda. This is the first opportunity for councillors in the open to discuss these issues, but it is something we will return to, I think, several times over the next year. In particular, we will be bringing to committee what our findings have been from these listening exercises geographically around the city. There have been some sectoral discussions as well that I've been hosting with sporting organisations, the health service, and we've got young people, schools, culture to come as well. So a lot of listening has taken place. A huge number of notes have been taken by Penny's team. Who've got the opportunity now to distill those notes into something coherent that we can use to plan what we're going to do going forward. And Penny's just referred to the big gathering in the Queen Elizabeth Conference Hall behind me here. I know some of you were at the previous two that we've had, so I would encourage councillors from across the council to come to the next one. Right. So colleagues, over to you. Who wants Emily? So I'll call the Vice Chair first, and then I'll come over and go back and forth.
Thank you. So one of the things I noticed in the report is it says that Bristol is a city of extremes between those who can flourish and have greater access to resources and those who do not. And I think that inequality is really important context that we need to remember when talking about the challenges. And I think it needs to inform everything we do. We know that lots of people are angry, and often those are people who don't engage with us or the council and have very little trust in the system. But I think it's really important that we listen to those people. A key recommendation in the report is making space for difficult conversations, but also going out to people where relationships already exist. It says using facilitation led by trained, local and trusted people, and not expecting people to go to new spaces or, for example, here to City Hall, for example. So can you just talk a bit about what you're doing to make sure that you are getting out to people that don't traditionally engage and who are angry and who don't have any trust in the system at the moment and who don't feel heard?
And it's a sort of shorthand phrase that can mean many things. Do you mean how can we be sure that we're listening to all sorts of voices in the city? For instance, white working class voices and so on? Yeah,
the voices that traditionally maybe, or the voices that don't feel that they've been listened to or part of those conversations, and where it's actually harder. We found it harder, I suppose, as a council.
Should we just take a little round of speeches, and then Penny can make a note of all the points being made, and then we'll start again. Who'd like to go first from the Green side? I'll take Abdul first because you've spoken once already, Emily.
Okay, so I'm just going to say something and then I've got a couple of questions at the end. So firstly, I really welcome the report and in particular the honesty of what communities have told us and how it's been displayed here. What comes through very clearly, I feel, is that people do not feel divided by accident. They feel divided because too many experience inequality, exclusion, and the lack of voice in decisions that affect their daily lives. This deep listening exercise confirms what myself and others have felt for a long time, especially within the inner cities. Cohesion is not built through slogans or one-off projects. It's built when people feel seen and when we have a sustained and respectable approach, and when we treat institutions fairly. I strongly support the move from reactive crisis management to long-term relationship building. I think that's really positive. But I want to be clear that listening to all of this could make it worse for us. If communities repeatedly share these experiences and we're not doing anything about them, or we're seen to not, the perception is that we're not doing anything about them, it can become very difficult. And the trusted organisations that I see in the report, VOSCA, SARI, Bristol Southwest, Black Southwest Network, and the police, I see are very trusted partners, and I have a lot of faith in them. But I would just say that we need to make sure that we're also supporting them and monitoring and keeping an eye on things. And as we move forward, success must be measured not by how many conversations we hold, but whether people feel that they are strongly being listened to and they belong and they're safe, and the confidence in them to keep telling us what they think is working and what's not. And so, you know, it's not soft tissue. If it's foundation, the foundation to public health, safety and democracy itself is when we get this bit right, and when we can respond to it properly. And one of the things that I would also say is that I still feel that religion is missing. I see that the Multi-Faith Forum is involved. I've seen that in the report, but I don't think that's inclusive of a lot of voices, and we need to reach out to the religious communities. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia are on a huge rise at the moment, and there's huge attention. And our city is mentioned in national media on a regular basis when it comes to these two things, and I think it's really important that we keep an eye on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. Lisa, do you want to go next?
Thanks very much, and thanks for doing this really important work. I also wanted to say thank you to Kamaljit and Ruth for the community cohesion report that they've done, and just recognise that these are really important and challenging conversations, and there's real skill involved in facilitating those so that everyone feels safe and heard. So I want to recognise that as well. A couple of things that stood out for me in this report was where someone from Hartcliffe said, where we live now, there is no pub, no restaurant, youth club, cinema, NHS dentist or swimming pool. And I think that really highlights what I certainly see as a councillor all the time in my own ward in Philwood as well, that there is that real feeling of being left behind or neglected and not heard. And the lack of housing, I think, is a key one in part of South Bristol that creates real issues. Another quote that resonated with me was that sometimes there is mistrust about outsiders bringing people together. So there needs to be an element of trust building before conversations can be facilitated. And that's certainly something that we experience as well in Noel West. I think within the community, you know, going back years and years, there's residents feel that lots of people have kind of come in from outside and sort of held sessions or groups saying, come and tell us what you think, what you need, and then they don't, similarly to what Abdul mentioned, I think that they don't then see anything happen as a result of those. So there's a bit of fatigue around that. So we really need to think about how we can facilitate those kind of sessions in the spaces that people already are. And I recognise that there is a challenge to that. So it would be really good, touching back on what Emily asked about, is what are the plans for how we really get into those spaces where people are, rather than asking them all to go to the local community centre, which is where some people are, but it's certainly not where everyone is. And then I just had a quick question around social media. So there's recognition in the report around the role of social media and the spread of misinformation. I was just wondering whether this is a standing item on the different groups that meet, like the Community Cohesion Group and the Community Safety Group and the Tension Monitoring Group. Is this kind of looked at as a standing item in each of those agendas to really kind of dig down into what might be going on online? Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Penny, do you want to respond to those three, and then we'll take another round?
Yeah, so, I mean, clearly the report is reflecting deep issues that for all of us as a city to think about, including the community development team. We have been really thinking about, and it very much informs our work about, you know, who are we talking to, who are we connecting with, and who aren't we? And that's very much informing how we're going forward. So I completely agree with you that there are probably comfortable places and less comfortable places for all of us. So there's something about how do we work with that? How do I support my team around that? But also, how do we make sure that we're hearing all of those views, whatever our personal view? So I would assure you that we are certainly working on that. We're not completely there, but we're working on it. And what I would also say is, if you think that there are people in your constituencies who we're not engaging with, then please do highlight that, because we want to hear. And I guess the wider issue around, trust and who we are and who we're not hearing from, people feeling that they've got influence in their communities, that's something that is being considered by the senior leadership team in the council. And kind of speaks to the work that we do right across the council. The point about social media and what's happening in that, the Community Cohesion Group is really a very... So there's so much that happens in local Facebook pages, all of those kind of hyper-local, very specific spaces. We obviously have the help of our internal communications team who are doing a lot of monitoring of that, but we also really benefit from positive relationships with people like Ambition Lawrence Western, Lotley's Neighbourhood Trust, SARI, who are also very good at bringing forward information and keeping us in touch with what's going on. So we do try, and we're very aware that that's a really important space. Thank you.
Thanks. Something about Abdul's point about making sure that making sure we listen to all voices in general, but specifically how do we make sure that we're covering all the different faith groups in the city. And just speaking of my own personal experience, you hear more from some faith groups than you do from others. So Muslim representatives speak. First of all, there are Muslim councillors and different Muslim groups in the city. I've had lots of engagement with over the years, and the council will have done as well. But other religious communities in the city, we don't hear so much from, but they are significant in our city. There are thousands of Hindus in our city, thousands of Sikhs, and we tend not to engage so much with them, and likewise they don't engage so much with us. I think we need to have a good think about how do we make sure that for the roughly half of the city, because we need to remember as well, half of the city who say they have a religious affiliation, that is an important part of their identity. How are we listening to all of them, not just some of them? I think it's something we need to do some thinking about, but of course the other half are people who identify as secular and no faith, so as a council we have to bear that in mind as well. Right, any Green colleagues? Ellie, I think you were indicating. Ellie, you go first and then...
Being very polite. Yeah, I wanted to ask about the role of councillors in all this. This is actually like the 4th meeting that I've been to where we've talked about these issues, but not with officers. So I went to a social justice network meeting back in November where we had a really good discussion about the flags and the protests and the work that was at that point in draft form. And then yesterday I had a meeting with a local community partnership who is bringing together partners who are really to talk about community cohesion, so that's sort of happening alongside. And then last night Emily and I were at community partnership steering group where we talked about it again. And you know, I work closely with the local community development officer in our patch, but my worry is that for places where perhaps there hasn't been this focus or where this work hasn't been done, that people are doing their, you know, that there are organisations and groups wanting to do their own thing, and I'm worried about duplication. I'm worried about Lisa's point about, you know, fatigue and being engaged. I just want to make sure that all of, you know, things like the mapping, which we also talked about last night, you know, all of that is being linked up with what you're doing, so we're not duplicating, we're not calling on the same people, and you know, and also those gaps aren't reinforced.
Thanks, Ellie. Cara, I think you were indicating.
Thanks. The report was interesting. It was a really interesting read, so thanks for all the work that went into that. I noticed it mentioned the race riots that happened in 2001 up north, and I actually made a BBC documentary about the social issues behind those race riots back in 2001, and spent months with the communities on both sides of the riots. And I was really struck by how the findings and the learning points in this report really just echoed what we were talking about 25 years ago. But what I see is the vast difference between then and now is one, social media and the impact of social media. And obviously we know that there's far-right money behind social media that's promoting algorithms and promoting messaging, racist messaging essentially. And the other thing is we no longer have political leadership, strong national political leadership that is standing up to messages about immigration. And let's face it, we know that for many, when we talk about immigrants, what we're talking about is race. And therefore, if our political leaders are not going to stand up and defend immigration and why immigration is needed, necessary, and good for society, then what we're sending is a coded message that racism is acceptable, and the impact that is coming from that lack of defence, that lack of balance, that lack of the other side, is the racist attacks that are spilling out into the community. I have attended a few of the counter protests to the far right demonstrations in Bristol. I go down there, I kind of understand the sentiment of the people who are counter-protesting, but what I'm more interested in is the sentiment of the people who've come to protest against asylum hotels. And so I'll always try and cross the line and have conversations with some of those people. And I am really struck by, there aren't very many of them. There are, you know, at the biggest there's maybe been 100, whereas we've seen thousands of counter-protesters in Bristol, because that's the kind of city Bristol is. But they are, the conspiracy theories that they talk to me about every time are absolutely terrifying, and that's purely internet and social media driven. And if you go down an internet and social media rabbit hole and they're telling you they're going to bring Sharia law over here, and you know, there are always nuggets of truth in conspiracy theories, but they're taking different ideas and spreading them into something else. And when I knock on doors we're very lucky in East Bristol, we don't have a problem with flags, which is why maybe lots of councillors are sort of quite surprised at how you feel in South Bristol, because if you don't go to South Bristol, you're not experiencing the discomfort that you guys are experiencing. And, I really feel for you. And I would ask, we do have deprivation in East Bristol, but why aren't we seeing flags? I think there's maybe some work that could be done to ask why this is really a problem. Is it deprivation? Is it inequality? Or is there actually something else that's happening in Bristol? So I'd be interested to know if that kind of work and those conversations are happening. One other thing, sorry. There was an HMIC report recently that we've discovered that the police, Avon and Somerset Police, even though several years ago it was just, they realised there was a problem with racism, misogyny, in Avon and Somerset Police, there was a report that's come out in the last few months saying that problem hasn't been rooted out and it's still ongoing, and they've been given a poor rating in an HMIC report. And I think that will undermine community confidence in talking to the police about problems that they're experiencing. And it's really, really imperative that the police are addressing racism, in particular, including Islamophobia, so that people feel safe to report, because as we're hearing today from people, there's a lot of intimidation around this issue. Councillors don't feel safe to speak up about it. Members of the public don't feel safe to speak up about it. We've got council staff who don't feel safe to go and do something about these flags. There's a serious amount of intimidation happening around this issue, and that is really, really worrying.
Thanks, Cara. Just on the policing issue, it's got an awful title, but there is another working group called Tackling Disproportionality. You think, what the hell does that mean? But it's about the whole issue of racism in the criminal justice system in general. So I've been to one of the meetings in Portishead at police headquarters, where the police, probation, prison services have all come together, and it was very difficult meeting about what people think about the nature of our criminal justice system. So that work is ongoing. Again, it's unseen. I think this is one of the things we need to get better at, is recording and putting in the public domain a lot of the work that does take place day to day on these issues. You're right on social media, which I mentioned myself as well. Of course, we've now crossed the frontier into AI as well. I mean, I've seen an image, and whether the rest of you have, of Keir Starmer on a beach with a bag, with a tablet, with, I think, a passport to housing or something, handing it out to people who've arrived on boats. And you look at the comments, and you think people believe this. They actually believe that the Prime Minister would turn up somewhere in Kent and hand over freebies to people. And, we may think, how could people do that? But people do. And people have believed rumours for as long as humanity's existed, but rumours now have more potency and strength than they ever did. And as I said at the start, that's where the rest of us have to not withdraw. So I've stayed on X, for instance, although it's now pretty horrible, but to think, how do we engage with people, both to put the facts out there, but as Lisa was saying earlier, how do we face-to-face, because this is where you really make a difference. How can we get these safe spaces so that people from different perspectives can, well, if they want to, shout at each other, but hopefully over time get calm and talk to each other about their viewpoints, which they may genuinely feel in some cases as to why their family hasn't got something and somebody else's family has got something. Ed.
Thanks very much. I'll try not to cover too much old ground, and thanks again to the consultants involved in putting the report together and the community exercises that have taken place. I was going to share firstly a similar reflection to one that you shared, Cara, around the news piece that you worked on in 2001. So my brother's a journalist, and when he was working in the UK, I remember we were living together at the time, and he went up to Lincolnshire to do a report on the Brexit vote a few days after. He went to speak to people in the fishing communities in places like Grimsby and Cleethorpes, and it really struck me that that lots of the community reflections that came through here were almost identical to things that to VTs that he gathered in that report, and actually quite painful to see that 10 years on, some of those reflections in our city are the same as the reflections we saw then, and similar to some of the reflections that we saw 25 years ago. I wanted to ask a bit about some of the ideas and activities for future consideration that came from response to the report, and really pleasing that there are ideas coming from there. And I think about what you were saying earlier about Stephen, there should be some hope in the conversation, but with a bit of a temper too, because I think some of the ideas in there are really interesting and creative. The idea of a festival Bristol that tours around the city, opening up venues for Friday night meals to share food from different cultures. I think the Grand Iftar that yourself, Aldo, invited me to this year's a really good example of that. Community centres with structured social activities. The challenge, of course, is we come back again to local government funding. And while there have been some increases in cash terms, these are not necessarily increases in real terms. The way Councillor Dyer, the council leader, was speaking on Tuesday about this predicament. And one of the concerns I've got is actually how we're going to resource some of these types of activities, which are clearly critical in terms of social order, in terms of community cohesion. And then the final thing I'd say is, I thought it was, I'm pleased to see that there was a reflection on, the idea of ivory towers. I mean, if this isn't an ivory tower in our city, this room, I don't know what is. I'm pretty concerned that I think sometimes the terminology and the language that we use as a council can help feed into that. Terms like community cohesion could be quite rarefied to someone. Even terms like one city, I think can be, I don't know how much I identify with that terminology. It can be quite rarefied, jargonistic language, and I think that's quite difficult for a lot of people to access, as you say, Emily, who are trying to reach, who aren't, who are feeling disenfranchised, who are not normally the types of people who are going to be engaging with council services or, remotely interested in, getting things like consent to put a flag up. So, just some additional reflections there, but very grateful for the report, and I think there are some reasons for optimism in there as well.
Thanks, Ed. And on the first bullet point on section 6 of the report, which suggests a festival of Bristol, that is something we accidentally did last year, though we didn't mean it to be that, when we had the Bristol Community Festival, which Emily and I participated in, which was actually celebrating volunteering and community action across the city, with some events dispersed across the city, then a big gathering here on the Saturday at the end of that week. And we're doing it again this year in mid-June. And it's going to be called the Bristol Community Festival again, but maybe in 2027 we call it the Festival of Bristol instead. But it is going to have a community cohesion aspect to it this year, that we're looking in particular for community groups to see how they can work with other community groups in different parts of the city, and there'll be £500 grants for them to take part in those activities. But I think this is something we need to big up in future years, but also have more knowledge about the good events that take place anyway around the city. In the Lawrence Weston community listening exercise the week before last, one of the ideas that came from a table was, I don't know what's going on in Bristol. Where do you go to find out what's going on? How do you know about the Grand Iftar in St Mark's Road in Easton? I suppose people do know whether the St Paul's Carnival is taking place, but there are all sorts of micro events that take place around the city. There's no central repository of where they are throughout the year, and I think that's our head office in this area has left the room at this inconvenient point, but I think it's something that our PR team in the council might be able to help us with, promoting what good things are taking place in the city. Yeah, community cohesion is a bit clunky. You could say, why can't we all just get along? Which is basically what we're trying to achieve. But community cohesion is the phrase that we're stuck with, but we're open to calling it something else. But yeah, we do need to demystify the language in this area, particularly if we are going to reach, as Emily and Lisa were saying, people who feel, and this is in the report, feel that they don't get listened to. And that's possibly more in the outer suburbs of the city than anywhere else, but it could be anywhere. We've all heard this as politicians, that we never hear from you unless there's an election and so on, which we know, I could say, it's the trade unionists for politicians at this point is not necessarily true, but there is a sentiment out there that whatever I think, somebody else is going to decide my future for me. So we do need to think about how we can genuinely listen to and then take different action as a result. Ned, you said that there needs to be some positivity in all of this, and part of the good things about my role, probably amongst all the committee chairs, I probably get out and about because of the remit. I get out and about more than all the other chairs around the city and see some fantastic things going on all the time, whether it's in Redcatch Community Garden in South Bristol, what Lockley's Neighbourhood Trust does, and so on. And we know good things go on. So one of the things I also want to put together is a sort of compendium of good ideas, good stories, things that are happening positively in Bristol. Some of it just to do some myth busting. There will be lots of examples of this in the public sector, in the health service in particular, how the child of someone who arrived here, say, from Somalia, fleeing civil war in the noughties, and their children have now grown up as British citizens, how they are the people who are saving your lives or starting an entrepreneurial business on Stapleton Road, for instance, in our city. There are lots of good things taking place in Bristol, and we're trying to gather together those good stories and finding a way to tell them, to counter that narrative that Britain is broken, which I definitely don't think it is. Right, so there were some other comments there. Penny and Christina, you've both been scribbling away. Penny, do you want to respond to some comments?
The coordination, I take that point and I'm happy to follow that up. I think the report, like I said, it's pause for thought for all of us, and how we kind of cut through, how we really connect with people in a meaningful way through the language we use, the approach we take, how approachable we are. That's all really important in terms of our next steps and how we work together as a city. And it's certainly something that's been discussed in the community cohesion group. What could our call to action be? So it's not perhaps this is our community cohesion strategy, but this is our call to action. This is what we want to do as a city. I think that's a very helpful reflection, so thank you.
Yes, thank you everyone for all of the contributions. We've made extensive notes, and I think all of the points are absolutely pertinent. Lisa, I want to just recognise the point you made about some communities having seen over many, many years regeneration projects go in, people from the outside go in and then leave. And I think particularly with South Bristol and the regeneration projects, that the big ones that we've got, the Fieldwood one and the Hartcliffe one, we really need to work together to understand, because those are all very good programmes, and some of the legacies, Hartcliffe and Witherwood Ventures, for example, is a legacy of earlier work. We need to make sure that we address permanently these solutions. That isn't something the council can do alone. It has to be a one council approach. It has to be all the city partners. And I think we've got a good foundation and a lot of will to do that. Which then segues over to Ed, your comment about funding. We're a big spending council, and I think this isn't always about new money. It's about making sure the Bristol pound is absolutely focused the way that we need it to be. But equally, we're a wealthy city. There are other funders of the community voluntary sector or businesses and other. And I think if we frame this, we need to get all of the Bristol pound focusing in this direction. So in terms of the ambitions as described, I think they're all doable. It doesn't mean we'll have a big shiny budget to do it, but we have got budgets, we have got spending power, and we have got partners, and I think between us, there's no reason that we shouldn't be doing the things that we know we need to be doing. Finally, on, I suppose it's more than social media, it's the mis and disinformation. And I think all we can say is we need to have that absolutely at the forefront of our learning curve. As Penny said, we have got local intelligence coming in about what's happening at a local level. Our communications team are involved in national learning sets around mis and disinformation, what it is and how we deal with it. And Cara, what a fantastic example actually of individually and personally how we can do that. And it's hard, isn't it? It is about crossing the divide, stepping out of our silos, hearing things that are a bit shocking from our own echo chambers and engaging in that debate. So I don't think there's any short answer, but it is work absolutely that we need to do. The young people will be key to this. Young people are much more savvy, actually, than a lot of us who've had to acquire and learn social media. And they are also thinking about this. And I know the Youth Council is very keen to advise and be involved and inform and help. Thank you.
Right, thanks, everyone. Are there any points? Yeah, Emily?
Two hopefully quick ones. First one, I was just thinking there's quite a lot on housing in this and the importance of housing. I know it falls under our remit, but I would quite like the housing members to be sent this report and see this report, if that's okay. Second point is just, and I'm trying not to make this in a political way, but when I was saying about getting out to the places to speak to people, I think it's obviously brilliant and that community cohesion do that, and I think they need to do that. I think local councillors need to do that as well, but I also think there is a role for political leadership of the council. This isn't me trying to say you're not doing it, but I think obviously you need to think carefully about when and where, but I think in order for people to feel genuinely listened to, it'd be really good to see that, and obviously the same goes for MPs and other people as well.
Yeah, I think this is a responsibility at all levels. All of us as ward councillors, people have responsibilities in the council, such as Tony, Heather and me in this agenda, but our members of Parliament as well have a role to play here. Okay, if there are no other points, thank you everyone for the points. This is where I'll do my 9 pairs of eyes are better than one comment, but this is something we will come back to many times over the remainder of our term of office in this political cycle. But all we're doing at the moment is noting the report itself, also noting how the money we did receive from MHCLG in 2024 was spent, so that we've publicly accounted for that. So thank you for that. If we now move on to our final item, which is agenda item 10, which is the quarterly performance report. Richard, do you want to come down to where your name badge is? So this is, we've had quarterly performance reports before, but this is now slightly different because both as me as the chair and as everyone on the committee went through the metrics that we have reported to us by the Cities Statistics Service with Pete Franklin, and said what we wanted to hear more about from the wide range of things that are measured by the city or other bodies that we could take note of their statistics. So this is our first opportunity to see those particular metrics. Before we come to questions, though, Christine is going to do a general introduction to this. And if there are questions, which I'm sure there will be, about some of the metrics, we've got both Christina and Penny or Carol to answer on any public health or communities issues. Patsy Mellor, who's the director for the other area of the committee's remit, but Richard Fletcher is standing in for her today to answer any questions, in particular about parks and green spaces, but there may be other aspects like trading standards and libraries and whatever that might come up as well. Right, Christina, over to you.
Thank you very much. So as Stephen's just said, this is the first of a new format of performance reporting. So the golden thread of this is that in 2025, the Council published its new corporate strategy and supporting business plan. And those set out the vision for the Council for working together for sustainable and equitable Bristol that enables everyone to be safe, well and thrive. So that's the vision from which everything flows. Underpinning that, there is a commitment to having a one council, one city, many communities, prevention-focused approach. So those are again, the golden threads going through. 5 priorities, corporate priorities, were agreed: education and employment, health and well-being, safe, healthy neighbourhoods and affordable, safe quality homes, easier, greener and safer to travel, and accelerating climate action and nature recovery. So in understanding the performance report as a whole and seeing it, you can see all of the committee's metrics. Probably helpful just to go back to the corporate strategy and the business plan and understand the kind of the framework by which this is flowing through. So to support the delivery of the plan, a brand new performance framework has been developed. And again, there's lots in the report, some links that Pete has put in where you can look at how the metrics have been agreed and divided up. But the performance framework has a mix of actions and metrics against the key ambitions and commitments of the corporate plan. And there are 3 types of metrics that are being presented and that you can see in the dashboard. There are actions, and that's what's been done against those commitments. There are metrics, which are data measures, and there are outcome measures, which are really the more holistic global measures, and a lot of those are annual. So the performance that this committee is responsible for crosses a number of council divisions, which is why you've got myself here for Public Health and Communities Division, and Richard here for Growth and Regeneration. So you're looking at things across a number of different divisions. And the committee selected, as Stephen's already said, 6 actions to track, 20 metrics measures, data measures, and 5 city outcome measures. So the headline of those are that the 6 actions are all well on track, and of the 20 metrics, all are on or better on track, and of the 5 city outcome measures, not all of which are reported through, they are all on track. So in essence, it's a good news story. The detail that you will need is on the performance dashboard. That's available to you all, and you can go in and you can have a full organisational view, a committee view, or a divisional view. It's not terribly easy always to read, so let us have feedback. I have to say I had to go and blow up and print things out, so we might want to sort of work on that as to how the information is more readable and accessible. But it is all there. And you can filter. The easiest thing to do is filter by committee, and then you can see the actions, the metrics, and the outcomes. So going to a little bit more detail, there were a number of areas where good performance has been achieved and worth noting. The maintenance of level of engagement with community development work, which given the recent discussion we've just had, very important. We've increased the number of attendances at our leisure centres and swimming pools, also very important because, of course, we've got a new contract and some big investments in our leisure facilities, so that's good to see that that's flowing through into people actually attending. Libraries, number of visitors has increased in the last quarter and is an improvement on last year, which is good to see, particularly in terms of concerns about literacy, etc. We have seen a reduction in the percentage of the population living in fuel poverty. Huge amount of work goes on behind the scenes on fuel poverty, not the council alone, in collaboration with a number of different partners. And we, on the public health side, we've reduced the percentage of people aged over 15 presenting with HIV at a late stage of infection, and that's really important milestone in terms of our prevention of HIV. We have increased the number of adults in drug and alcohol structured treatment, and we've increased the percentage of continuity of care. That's people in the prison and offender pathway. That was a big improvement. You'll be aware that we were on a notice to improve by the Office of Health Improvement and Disparities a couple of years ago. These were the things they were focused on, certainly not complacent or at the end of the journey, but it's good to see that we have made some improvements. There are two areas pulled out with a focus for improvement, if you like. One is reducing our drug-related deaths. Now, important to note that the figures you're looking at here are not necessarily overdoses or drug poisonings. Yeah, we do have those and we do track those. What you're looking at here are the people who die that we know who are in touch with drug and alcohol services. And what you're seeing here is the impact of health inequality, of quite often, habitual lifelong use of multiple substances, opiates, non-opiates, and alcohol. And that this is about some of our health and health checks for that population. As much as it is, and Cara, I know you will be, absolutely asking us about this, it is also about reducing drug overdoses and drug poisonings. Hate crimes, Penny can say a little bit more about this. We did see an increase in hate crimes. We've seen a steady increase since 2024. Interestingly, the very recent report, which isn't reflected here, we've seen that tail off. We always have to be quite careful about hate crime reporting. Part of our work around No Place for Hate is encouraging people to record hate crimes and to report that in. So just need to always be sure that we understand what we're seeing when we see hate crime. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of the overview. Members may have questions about specific metrics.
I hope they do. Thank you, Christina. I just want to highlight two things myself. First of all, on the investment in leisure centres and swimming pools, we were going to have a discussion about this to some extent at full council on Tuesday. For various reasons, that's been deferred to a future full council meeting. And we've also been having our LGA peer review this week. So we've talked with our reviewers about the corporate plan, which I'm sure you can all recite is one council, one city, many communities, with prevention as the focus of everything we do. And investment in sport and active recreation is an incredibly important part of that prevention agenda. And I'm keen to work with colleagues from all political parties on how we can step up that investment in the coming years across the city. But I just want to celebrate the investment that has taken place, that Christina sort of hinted at. We've spent, as a council, invested over £11 million in Hallfield Sports Centre, where I go on a regular basis, and also in Eastern Leisure Centre. And some of us, last Saturday morning, were at Eastern Leisure Centre, where our partners, everyone active, were reopening the centre with a much bigger gym, enhanced poolside facilities and studios and other things. I just want to acknowledge that that's taken place, and some of us enjoyed meeting Harry Akinis-Ariti, otherwise known as Nitro, from either Gladiators or Strictly, depending on what you watch. And it was interesting also to meet Tommy Matthews, who's described as a ninja runner. And I thought, what the hell's that? And it's obstacle running, which is a sport, and he's the 4th in the world. So we know all about Judd Trump. I was watching Master Snooker last night. who has, of course, the England flag next to his name. But we have Tommy Matthews as well, who has global status as an obstacle runner, and he lives in Brislington. So that's really good. So I'm just acknowledging that and say we do need to think as a council about how we can continue the investment programme in sports and active recreation. Wearing my other hat as chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, we're doing a joint session with the Transport Board in February, looking at the health benefits of sort of walking, cycling, active recreation going forward. But the particular point I want to address, and Cara, you I'm sure will have views about this as well, is that every month I go to the Bristol Combating Drugs Partnership, which is not exactly a cheerful occasion because, of course, this is dealing with individuals who are in difficult circumstances, but as a politician I have to think about the wider impact on society as well. And a statistic that was beginning to stand out for me was the fact that only roughly a third, it moves about a bit, but roughly a third of people who leave prison, this is not just Bristol prison, but prisons across the southwest of England, are picked up within 3 weeks, which is the target that's measured, or the metric that's measured here, picked up within 3 weeks of leaving prison to continue their continuity of care, whether it's for alcohol, opiates, or crack. What does that mean? It means if they're not picked up within 3 weeks, they're almost certainly going to get back into addiction, meeting up with the people who perhaps got them into problems in the first place, going back into prison, and the vicious cycle starts all over again. So it's a terrible public health situation, which is what everyone on the Combating Drugs Partnership is largely focused on, but it's a terrible societal position as well for the impact on the family and friends of those individuals, but also on society more generally as well. I don't know whether other councillors, but at our community forums in Westbury and Henleys, we get police statistics, and shoplifting is definitely rising as an issue and is rising as a concern amongst our residents as well. And of course, an awful lot of retail crime will be to feed an addiction. So trying to do something about driving up that percentage from beyond around about a third to, let's say, half of prisoners are picked up within 3 weeks. It's not only good for them, it's good for the criminal justice system, but it's good for society as well. And the Combating Drugs Partnership is now looking at this in detail. So ultimately saying I'm interested in this, and Christina's deputy, Julie Northcote, and I've been on a visit to Bristol Prison as well to meet the governor and her staff to have a good discussion about this, to say we're really interested in how we can make this better and perhaps make Bristol stand out, because this is a national problem, not just a Bristol problem, how we can make a difference locally. Right, those are my 2 comments. Does anyone else wish to pick up particular aspects? Ed?
Thank you, Stephen. I want to start with a general comment on the report itself. So having a scan through, and thank you for the team who put it together, in total I've noted 15 different outcomes where there is no data supplied. Now, I'm sure in all 15 cases there is a very good reason for that, but in very few of those cases has a reason actually been provided. In fact, in one case, PHC 153, the tracking the number of antisocial behaviour incidents reported, not only is there no data, but there's no supplementary information provided at all. And quite a lot of the cases, supplementary information provided does not address why there is not a metric on there. In particular, I pick up 2 of them actually on uptakes of the MMR and MMR2 vaccination coverage. That's one particularly close to my heart. I grew up, you'll know I'm autistic. I grew up with the education system still and textbooks still spouting the idea that the MMR vaccine causes autism. We know that's a conspiracy theory that's resurfaced in recent years, and why uptake needs to be tracked in the first place. And I'll simply say to anyone listening who's worried about their vaccine, as someone with autism, I can tell you you'd much rather have autism than rubella. But I wanted to ask generally, with these ones where there is no metric, firstly, can we have explanations in each case provided in these reports, even though they've been provided in previous reports, to say why the metric is not there? Secondly, what actions have been taking place in order to get hold of a suitable metric, and see if it is not possible to get an equivalent metric, can we look at a change in what the outcome is itself? Because if it can't be tracked, then it is clearly, then clearly it shouldn't. There needs to be an alternative.
Right, thanks for that. I mean, we don't have, would normally, someone from the Statistical Service here, so I don't know whether you can pick up the aspect of the missing metrics, but also deal specifically with the point that Ed raised about measles, mumps and rubella vaccination, which is something we have been concerned about, and we did have a media campaign over the summer this is some time ago now, in the advance of children returning to school. I wonder if you could say something about whether the uptake of the first and the second jab has in fact got better.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I completely agree. I actually had to print all this out in order to be able to read it. And when I finally did read it, I think we do have more metrics than were in here. And absolutely, if there isn't a metric, there ought to be an explanation. So one of the actions I've certainly taken with our team is we'll go back and look at this and improve our metrics. And Richard, if you can just have a look as well. I didn't look so closely at yours, but if we're not giving a metric, I'm not sure why it's in the metric list, but we certainly have got much more data on a number of things here that is for some reason isn't in the report, and the explanation isn't. I guess it's new. This is a new process, so just bear with us, but absolutely spot on. And thank you for raising the issue of measles, mumps and rubella, and indeed childhood immunisations generally. I'd just like to point out Beth here, who I think you met earlier, who's coming in as one of our new child health consultants. Absolutely one of our biggest issues, childhood immunisations, but also immunisations generally. We've had a huge push over the last few months, and we are beginning to see some progress. Notwithstanding, we do have large pockets in Bristol where we have an under-vaccinated population, so it's an ongoing challenge. And really, thank you all committee members for championing that for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, and it's helpful to have some reassurance in that response, and I think that's key to it when it comes to the MR vaccines, is that generally the uptake is to do with pockets rather than it being citywide, and that's and that can make the likelihood of things spreading far higher, which is obviously the concern. I just want to reaffirm, if there is something in here which is listed as a desirable metric essentially, and there isn't going to be a metric suitable, the solution I don't think is to take it out entirely. There needs to be the nearest equivalent needs to be reported on, because it's clearly been determined by this committee at a previous meeting that these are the 21 areas in which we would like to see some kind of reporting on. So if, for example, it's because X and Y health body are unable to provide that data for data protection reasons, or a form needs to be signed somewhere, we need to know that kind of information. We need to know the actions that are going to be taken, or if that's where the blocker is, because then that means that other bodies like HOSC, etc., can then take remedial action if required. But thank you.
Emily?
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to see that there's been a lot of progress in a lot of different areas, and I think that just shows kind of the importance of having these metrics to focus the team. One thing I was just thinking when I read the reports and reflecting on the conversation we had previously is I'd be really interested in something around increasing the number of people who agree that people from different backgrounds get on well together in their neighbourhood. I know we've discussed these metrics previously, but in light of the discussions we've had, that's something that I would really like us to be measuring.
Technical point, is that from the Quality of Life survey? We get that?
Yeah, so that would be the Quality of Life survey. That's been reduced to every 2 years. I'm not quite sure when the cycle we are, but every time it comes up, we've got an opportunity to put new questions in or to change the questions. The only thing, if you put a new question, you haven't got a baseline, so people are often reluctant to take questions out. But I think that's certainly something we can ask Penny to look at when Quality of Life comes around again. Yeah.
Cara, did you have anything you wanted to ask? Anybody else? Lisa.
Thank you. It was just a quick question around the Why Wait pledge, which is obviously really important and good to see. I recognise it's quite kind of early stages for that still. And the report kind of lists some of the actions that have been taking place, but it doesn't talk so much about kind of outcomes from those actions and what success looks like. It does say that there'll be some data for Year 6 children released in December 2025. Have we had that yet? And then it also talks about the 86 families who have so far attended healthy lifestyle programs, and I'm just wondering what are the measurements for how we've kind of deemed whether or not that's successful, and what are they? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. That's one of the ones I looked at, and I thought we do have data. I don't know why it's not in here. So I just had a chat with Beth beforehand. So we do have the child measurement data, and I don't know why the previous data wasn't in here, even if by the time the report was published, we didn't have the next lot, but we'll make sure that this is sharper next time, absolutely. And yes, in terms of the new weight management programme, there are some very interesting metrics coming out of that. It's a very different approach. The previous traditional approaches to weight loss, community weight loss programmes, were things like Weight Watchers, very traditional, and that wasn't working very well with our communities. So this new approach is very much co-produced. It's working with communities. It's addressing people's concerns. So there are men's groups, there are women's groups, there are groups in community, and they then identify the actions that they need to take alongside the sort of expert advice. So we've got some really quite good results that should be in here. We'll bring them next time. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, measurement of children's weight is a key deliverable from our school nursing investment, and you're saying, so I'd say it's a statutory requirement that we do it as well. I've seen the data, so I know it exists. So if we can have that in next time. I'm sensing fatigue around the room. Are we all done? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. So we are just noting this report. We've noted the gaps in the report as well. Thank you, Ed, for clearly going through it with a fine-tooth comb and pointing that out to us. So we'll address that next time. Thank you, everyone, for today. At some points, this meeting was difficult, but the subject of community cohesion is something we will return to many times over the next 2.5 years of our terms of office. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions today, and have a good rest of Friday.